Can Light Yagami catch and beat Johann Liebert? In a hypothetical scenario, Light Yagami after getting caught by L along with Misa, this scenario will focus on different possibilities, also trying to outline Light Yagami and Johann's intelligence and how a battle with them goes, but also trying to stay realistic that sometimes it does become a bit what ify, but that's what you can expect, along with at the end also concluding if Light can beat him in general, so a real life scenario and outsmarting / IQ battle type stuff. The universe shifts back to a time where Johann Liebert is relevant. This has to happen as putting Johann Liebert in the Death Note timeline makes no sense, as he has no reason to actually do anything. Basically, in the scenario after Light was caught by L and did the switch of the Death Note went to Johann Liebert. While Light did want someone greedy, we just have to make this happen for this scenario. Instead of actually going directly to Johann like Minoru in the one shot, it will be dropping near him, as Johann would have intentions to use it. It's easier to commit his deeds after all. Light Yagami was an invincible killer, and the evidence was practically non-existent. Johann, who is already close to this and is compared to this without having the Death Note, will be insane to catch. He's known as the Kira without the Death Note, basically. That's how crazy he is. The new Kira from the original Death Note timeline was able to be identified with his killing patterns. While not being the exact same person as before, as this is a new Light, he was still able to figure out the killing patterns for killing wealthy people and how Yosuba gained growth right after that. Higachi received the Death Note from Rem, who was instructed by Light to give it to a greedy and selfish person who would use the Death Note to attain high status. This was because Light knew himself and that he could figure out the patterns. So the only way to make this scenario work and have them catch on to Johann, as it's practically pretty hard, is to have the German police at least have contact with L. This isn't illogical, as L has power over all police in the world. In the BB murder case right here, it says he wielded incredible power, was able to immobilize every investigative bureau in the entire world, and was applauded generously for his efforts. Basically, yes, Germany police can get him involved. Now, if L or them contact him, it depends. Maybe Light is able to find a correlation with deaths, but I think it makes more sense if they are able to find sudden heart attacks in Germany. This of course would be Johann's doing. It also calls into question if Johann would even need to manipulate that many people, and if Johann is able to learn the full rules of the Death Note and can use it to his advantage. Also, if Johann would use the Shinigami Eyes, which is a very interesting thing to think about really. However, it's no guarantee that Johann is able to complete his full plan if he cuts his lifespan, so I don't think he would take the deal. But around this point, he does have one focus, and it is possible that he kills more people than usual because he has more leverage and he's more not as involved, so it's possible he could kill more. But it's very hard to think of that. But it is possible, and that could help them find him. It depends though, because contrary to popular belief, Johann kills for many reasons, and it's all lined up to his end goal, which means we have to do a little dumb logic jump and say the deaths were mysterious because of heart attacks, or maybe strange things they did before they died. Either way, you have to do this. Now, time to talk about the whole goal for these two people. Light Yagami and L and oh yeah, of course, police, Misa, blah blah blah. Light initially set himself to go after the following Death Note user because he knows he would work with L. With his now clean mind, Light's whole plan was to clear his name by going against layers upon layers of evidence. So now basically Light has to get the Death Note back because it restores his memories, but of course, he doesn't know this. This is why it's called Could Light Catch Johann, because he needs to catch him along with L. Johann Liebert now with the Death Note, if he learns of the rules, this will be a very easy time for him killing people and probably less suspicious, assuming this Johann Liebert after the time skip and being grown has already killed by then. At this point, Johann has an underground and the largest money laundering business. It's interesting to think that he just kills Yonkers with a heart attack, which means it's possible Tenma may never meet Johann at this point. The argument is that Johann would want Tenma to know and follow him, but this isn't true. Johann warned Tenma to not follow him because he knew that it would ruin Tenma's life. However, once he became part of the equation, he started to have Tenma follow him to the plan of ending his perfect end. It's also not weird to think he wouldn't kill with the Death Note because also, contrary to popular belief, Johann doesn't get any thrill out of killing. Nor does it matter if he inflicted some torture before he kills them. Shooting one of his subordinates without looking is a quick example. There's no thrill, he just does it. If you want to bring up the example of Detective Richard and how he treated him, we can bring that up later in this video regarding how he acts towards others. It's essential because of how he may interact with Light Yagami later. If you want to take into the interpretation that Johan wants to meet Junkers maybe and writes his name at the same place or somewhere, then you can have Tenma find him. Because if we're being honest, you honestly aren't going to find Johan at this point if he just sits somewhere and wipes everyone away. You could say the same argument for Light Yagami. It's pretty boring, so we can't have that happen. You can kind of have just Johan write many names he knows and just wipe himself away eventually. However, Johan still needs to go around Germany to find experiments like the Red Rose Mansion and find more about himself. That's the entire journey of his character, so he can't really skip that. He still needs to move around. I think he still will need to execute the perfect suicide, and with the ideological conflict between the two characters that defines the ideals in both the characters' minds, I think Johan could either just kill Junkers with a gun or just write his name. If we're being realistic at this point, you aren't finding Johan. Even L can't, because without the Death Note, you would have to go into police files and investigate the suspect, which would be Tenma. Then judge if he is the killer, then that leads to learning about Johan, etc. So basically this scenario could be finished right here, and in my L vs Johan video, we did the same type of scenario. And there was no Death Note, and that's the only way to find him. Only way, without no Death Note. So it's going to be even harder with the Death Note. So I don't really want to arspool and try make this work. So we'll move on to scenario number 2, where Johan finds a Death Note after already executing Junkers and meeting Tenma. So he's already met Tenma, and because, let's be honest, it's not realistic for him to be at the crime scene if he already has a Death Note. So in scenario 1, we have a win for Johan. Light, Yagami, and L would be searching for literally nothing, and the time period doesn't help them. And even with technology, you still can't track him down. People think just because L found Light through no physical evidence, which the police and the ICPO mentioned, that if someone had been shot or stabbed, they'd have something to go off, but with the Death Note, it was hard now. It's true L did manage to track them down, but that was only because of Light's emotional mistakes, Light's ego, and Light's hunger for competition, because he was bored, which started the series of Death Note in the first place. If Light just sat in his room and wrote criminals' names down without doing anything, risky at all, and not revealing his location, which was a literal emotional mistake that he also mentions it was later on in the series, for someone like Johan who isn't driven by ego nor actual anger, all you could do is to provoke him, I guess, is to do like a live execution of his loved one, like a sister or something. But that's very specific and a highly unlikely scenario. If you guys want to learn more about Johan, make sure to check out the previous video, as this will make more sense to you if you just watch that, so you can understand his goals and how it actually drives Johan. So the bottom line of this is Johan, who won't make the same mistakes as a clumsy early starting off Light, won't be found. The only reason L found Light as quick as he did was because Light took the bait, because he proved Kira was real and in Japan/Kanto region. Narrowing it down by the entire world, just the Kanto region of Japan. The author says Death Note would be boring if it was just Light killing without stress. Scenario 2 would start after Johan walks away. You could say after Ava sees him or something like that. But around there, he finds the Death Note, and everything else from there applies. What I said before, scenario 1 in the video intro, still applies, where he finds the Death Note, still stands either way, just a different time period. Scenario 2 works better because we now have Tenma, who knows of the existence of Johan, and Johan still uses others to kill couples, leaving room to suspect Tenma and for the Kira task force to investigate the actual cases based on actual leads to follow up on. At most, all you could do was find the killers of different victims from the couple family murders. However, it still won't lead you to Johan either way. And also, Johan made sure to kill some people who did jobs for him, and with the Death Note it makes it easier, so having a lead is required for the story to progress. Johan was able to find his Death Note without being seen, not being tracked, because of how he was able to move with a reliable VPN. A reliable VPN service that can guarantee the security of your online activities and grant access to geo-restricted content. Sounds pretty insane, right? Well, it's real, and this VPN service is Atlas VPN. With their advanced VPN technology, you can rest easy knowing that your data is protected from the prying eyes of hackers and cybercriminals. But that's not all. Are you tired of being deprived of certain content due to your location, like I said before? With Atlas VPN, you can effortlessly switch to a different country and unlock a world of entertainment and knowledge. Say goodbye to those frustrating not available in your country messages and hello to a new world of possibilities. And the best part, Atlas VPN is available on all devices, so you can enjoy seamless browsing no matter where you are, instantly. Now here's the cherry on top. Atlas VPN is offering an unbeatable deal that you simply cannot miss out on. For only $1.83 per month, you can enjoy a free subscription to their stellar service along with 3 months absolutely free. And in case you are completely not satisfied, Atlas VPN offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, ensuring a risk-free investment. So why wait? Sign up for Atlas VPN today and experience unparalleled freedom and security online. This is a deal you won't find anywhere else, so grab it while it lasts. We can now start from the Kira Task Force perspective in this timeline. After Light swapped his Death Note, he now loses his memories. L would be depressed as usual because he thinks Kira's power will keep swapping the closer he gets to Kira. He also is suspicious that Light will return as Kira one day, but right now he isn't Kira. Unlike the original where Light found correlations between the death of businessman Yosuba's growth, instead of Light finding out something, eventually L would contact different police around the world. As I stated before, he has the power to do that. With different cases all around the world, they'd find some interesting cases I assume, but most of them would have a common trend of a killer that is at least identifiable with evidence. Someone with the Death Note, by the way, just so I clear at this point, none of them would have knowledge of the Death Note, but I'm saying Death Note so you guys understand what I'm saying. So someone with the Death Note would have more mysterious deaths, with one case in Germany having mysterious kills. All German police bureaus get contacted by L, and with one of them learning about the mysterious murders of old couples. It's a random kill pattern, but it's one that would at least have something to look into, with it happening randomly. And in the series of Monster, it did have evidence, but that's when you find the hired killers and Johan. So it's still mysterious either way. Let's just assume that for the scenario 2 to work. A couple of weeks after arriving in Germany, the Kira task force would be in ears with different files and suspects, with one of the suspects being identified as Dr. Tenma, someone that is on the run from the police. L decides that one of the first things on order isn't investigating all the deaths, of course. They will, but it's not an exact priority. Just in case he finds something the police can't, it's possible. But the real priority is to go psychoanalyze Tenma and see how suspicious he truly is. L and Light first would try to make a profile of the killer, so when they meet Tenma, they can find something similar. It's similar to how L profiled Light during the Kira case, and also to clarify, if you think L wouldn't investigate some suspects and deaths, just something like that, L is willing to investigate anything involving the case, even if it's a 1% chance, and he's very meticulous, and even got tricked by Light in the Kira case when sending him notes to figure out, and in the end, he never got anything out of it, only being embarrassed and mocked. So L is very meticulous and would do any small thing to figure it out. We're talking about a guy that would go under any small percentage to investigate a household. Small percentage of Kira being in there. He does not miss anything. I wouldn't put it under L right now to also torture any criminals that kill for Johan. However, I doubt it will be this quickly, but we can discuss that later. Light agrees with the idea of meeting Tenma and suggests that they should start following any sightings of someone named Kenzo Tenma, with having the task force split over Germany and still in contact. L probably won't get out until he knows exactly where Tenma is, because we obviously don't have the world's greatest detective searching around physically. He's gonna wait. Now, just like how Light met Naomi Misora by coincidence, we have to do it here. You could say Tsuruchiro or Light could have been out in Germany somewhere when they see their suspect. Light might be more natural and hopefully would befriend him, and it's probably the case. But if it's Tsuruchiro, he might make a big scene or be stealthy. I assume L will give them specific instructions on how to act and deal with him, because L is pretty good at predicting a person's actions, and you'll definitely assume that naturally they're going to try and escape if the suspect is such high intelligence to be able to commit all these murders. They can probably grab him, but that seems like something Tsuruchiro would do. Or Light, for example, would be able to be more social. Light is someone with crazy charisma. After all, he was able to convince a former high-tier FBI agent Naomi Misora. Personally, it is kind of wrong, but L wouldn't mind just grabbing Tenma, similar to like Miso or something. Either that, or we have someone like Light befriend him. And it's possible enough with Tenma that he might just run off, if he sees Tsuruchiro or something and he's like a bit more suspicious. It really depends. I'm pretty sure Tenma could read it too. In each scenario of this meetup with a different type of character, we still have Tenma meet with L either way with indirect force, which is Light's charisma type stuff, or it's just taking him with a direct force. I prefer seeing Light's charisma in action because this is like a scenario with him. And also, in this age of Germany, we won't find Tenma that easy with just a couple task force members. The German police barely saw Tenma most of the time, so it's not weird to assume this if he just runs off after being suspicious of Tsuruchiro or something. But of course, you could just have him grab him or whatever. But I prefer the Light scenario. If we can once have L meet with Tenma, then he can psychoanalyze him and test him. Preferably, I'd rather the Light scenario so Tenma isn't hostile and he speaks the raw truth with L when L questions him and tests him. In my opinion, just like L did in the Kira case, he would try and match Tenma to the profile of the killer, which L did with Light Yagami and Kira. Once L does a couple tests, he'd be able to tell Tenma isn't a bad person and gets the information about Johan. After L reveals his true mission, saying something like, "We are trying to find the killer of the old couple," Tenma would be gladly to help and would tell L about Johan and, like I said, fully clear himself. And stuff like a kid killing and doing different stuff around Germany isn't the craziest thing for L, who versed a 16-year-old high schooler with some supernatural power. And just to bring up this one more time, this is why I prefer the Light scenario, because we have like a continuous contact, you could say, for just a short bit. Whereas if you know, Sarutro just grabs him, you know, might be more hostile and like think he's probably part of Johan's gang or something, you know. After the task force learning of Johann Liebert, they finally have identified the next Kira, or at least someone that may be connected to Kira. He's smart enough to do all these crimes. To now find Johann Liebert comes down to being in ears with Tenma, because remember, they actually don't know if he has the Death Note or not, so he could have a relation to Kira. But his crimes do have a relation to those murders, so that works. Basically, we have the Kira task force follow Tenma, and since this is right after Johann kills Yonkers around that point at least, the task force have lots of information to be gathered as Tenma learns more about Johann and Anna. So they're basically following Tenma's journey, including his intelligence, like learning of his underground banking system, how fast he learnt languages, and also how some of his followers met him, like the flower guy. They will learn of his past, which first would be 501 Kinderheim, where even without a Death Note or magical power, whatever it was, he was able to lead an uprising and have many people kill each other with only words alone. This Kira is something different with that type of power, and now with Kira's power, he will be crazy to stop. Good thing, however, they have Tenma. They also have the upper hand as Johann has calculated everything including Tenma into his plan, but the task force along with Light Yagami and L, he would not be aware about that. And eventually along the way after, you know, Tenma meets Anna or something like that, he would also give information that there's also corrupt cops on his side too, so even some of the German police can't be trusted with the information they hold. Since they are following Tenma and doing a bit of investigating themselves, Johann and the stuff still survive though. You can wonder if the Death Note even identifies their name as that, and also if their actual name is even that, and also even if Johann knows it. He mainly kills people involved with the Kinderheim 501 stuff and the other experiments, but unknown to Johann right now, he still needs to kill a certain someone named Bonaparte. In the timeline of events, Johann, after closing on those Neo guys, you know, Johann starts to move in on Shuval. This point is basically the same. There's not much need to discuss this, and you know, because this Loki feels like Johann is using a Death Note. It all comes down to his talking and amazing strategy. Most of what he does around this point feels like a dude with the Death Note, bro. All manipulation of people like Richard and plans revolve around Shuval. The real changes begin as Tenma discovers Johann, and eventually Tenma is tracking him, of course. And we see in the original timeline this is exactly the same, and he would still do that. Especially during that one time where Tenma was looking at Johann while he was just doing his normal daily life, and Johann looks straight at him. He was fully aware that he was tracking him. And this is just a little hint to say, Johann knew that Tenma was following him and just put him into his plan. But remember, he doesn't know that Light and L are tracking him, the task force. So this is going to be very interesting. So around the library, where Johann will actually face Tenma, and you know, basically fear hexes him, and really like the real time where they'll face Johann. Now naturally, Johann is not going to go into a battle like if they show themselves, so if it's better if they do it more of an indirect action instead of direct, using Tenma as a distraction while the real threat moves in. As you guys know, Johann puts his finger at his forehead, and people have analysed this to coming down to Johann testing if his death will be reached here. And when he puts it down, he's sure that he's going to survive. So when he is taunting Tenma with the finger thing, L or Light, or even just some hired people or task force can move in. It's possible here that Roberto actually kills someone here, and maybe more if he shoots some others quick. It could be any of the task force, maybe a lot of them, though because L isn't just some random guy, he has a person named Watari. Watari is able to do a lot of things similar to people like Johann hires, but just in one person. He could shoot Roberto right after Roberto kills someone, and you can't really know Roberto is there unless Tenma has already been attacked by him. Either way, it doesn't matter too much. I wouldn't think L or Light would move in that quick, because they're more of the indirect people, while the task force are more like, you know, going in and all that stuff. So they wouldn't die in that scenario where Roberto shoots. In a scenario where Roberto shoots, Watari gets him, then they apprehend Johann. In a scenario where they already know Roberto is there, you could say, you know, Tenma's been attacked by him, Watari got him, and without any task force members dying, they apprehend Johann straight away. As we're taking account of actual continuity and the timeline, realistically they know Roberto is there. If Tenma already had been attacked by him and being near the same area as he was before they could move in. And once again, it's also interesting to think that the task force could be in the same area. If so, then some die here, and it may be enough for Johann to run away after he realizes there are more people. If he runs, he can understand his situation and now factor in these people into his upcoming plans. More aware, now ready, and he will take his notebook around now. However, before that, let's go over a scenario where he is caught real quick, just so I rule out this possibility. It'd be interesting to think if Johann doesn't take his Death Note with him. The reason I said that is because Johann wouldn't take his Death Note around with him. There's no logical reason for Johann to bring his Death Note here. And this will put into perspective how isn't there pre, you know, them coming. Nor would he actually know about getting caught. Johan calculates many things, and if Tenma kills him then that works. There was really no plan after he exploded the library. He switched from killing Shuvolt because of that incident in the library, and also because of Karl, someone he actually cared about and empathized with. Not killing Shuvolt was for a reason. I won't go into it for it now, but just check out my Mind of Johan vid, because I discuss all of this along with his different crimes, and why possibly there's a reason behind his kills. Anyway, besides that, when he calculated everything into his plan and not some setup which he hadn't caught any signs of beforehand, this would actually maybe be the end of this scenario, because when he is caught, they wouldn't take him to the police legally. Or not. El doesn't care and would probably torture him similar to Misa. Johan wouldn't take the death note, and if he did, it's kind of weird, there's literally no reason to use it, so I won't assume. Johan would never say anything about the notebook, it's pretty dangerous. However, even if you found it, it wouldn't matter. Johan Liebert is never dying. He is nameless and can't be written unless someone got the Shinigami eyes. In this scenario, Johan may just be caught, however he is still aware of Bonaparte. This is why his plan switched from just killing Shuvolt, because now he remembers this person from his childhood. This is the exact core reason why he switched up. So it's actually pretty important to factor this in. He awakened from his amnesia, and now he remembers this one person. So a lot of things could go bad after this. But Tenma may be able to stop any tragedies from happening to Anna, which Johan wouldn't want to be killed at all. So Johan can entrust Tenma at least to protect her. It's a pretty boring scenario because I don't think Johan could escape. However, proving someone is guilty is impossible with the death note, but with his other criminal activity it's possible you need to go show him to the police either way. The detective code and considered a win is proving, and to do this you need to put him in actual jail, and having a little jail probably doesn't matter much without having any legality. But El is pretty influential, but the knowledge of corrupt cops makes it difficult here. And here I'd like to end this scenario. But if you assume they had taken him to jail, that means he escapes due to corruption, or even without corruption, someone breaks him out, or someone joins and acts as a cop. It's pretty possible for Johan's influence. Now, here comes the pretty fan-fiction-y stuff. But Johan escapes, and now he can at least factor new threats into his new plans, which would make him pretty aware coming up, and the same stuff wouldn't happen again. After, Johan can do the same and wipe away everyone who worked with him, apart from some that he still needs for his last plan. His last plan won't need the death note, but he'll still carry it with him, as before he didn't carry his death note and stuff went wrong, so he'll probably carry it. This point of the story is now the finale. It's supposed to be where its grand climax is. The perfect suicide is also to prove his ideals against Tenma, so he still wants Tenma to shoot him. If they can apprehend Johan and stop any stuff that Johan managed to put there to hold them back, like extra backup so it doesn't ruin his plan. Some task force members might be shot and killed here. It could be similar to how Lunge was close to death. This sets up little showdown between maybe some people, including obviously Tenma, but he is already by himself and still faces Johan as the original. But yeah, the team with Light and El plus a random task force member. It'd be funny if Sarutro is there because of what is coming up. That's why I said it's a bit fan-fiction-y in this little scenario. If they can apprehend Johan, then this would happen. Like in the original, with the third Kira would grab the death note as he was touching it after everyone else, and his memories would come flashing in. Evil Light, or Kira, the original, has returned. Light might have to be forced to take the Shinigami eyes here. This will only be this scenario. We know Light is too prideful to get the Shinigami eyes in the L Changed the World, and Light got caught. This happened basically, but for now, let's just say this does happen for this fun scenario. It's not in character for him to do it, but let's just say it does. He's in a difficult scenario. He can't kill anyone without getting shot by someone here or getting caught. He could act as if he was like the perfect child, with El starting to feel uneasy because El once again stated that Light feels too perfect, and this change would be a tiny bit noticeable for someone like El. However, if Light is able to walk away with the death note for a bit, he can ask for the deal and try to kill everyone there. Meaning, funny enough, what everyone wanted back in the yellow box warehouse with Nier, Light is able to do and kill everyone, including El, with the death note. Watari wouldn't be here, and more likely would be in a helicopter or something. If you assume that, then Light would kill Johan. Or would he align with him? Or is it possible that just a random guy shoots Johan? Does Tenma die by Light? Does he get shot? Now, this is where I'd like you guys to make your own scenarios in the comments. This alternative timeline thing, that was sort of fanficky. And I just wanted to go all over that because there should be no room to assume anything else and fully answer if Light could catch, then beat him. Overall, if Light wins this time and not dying or getting caught. Now, I'd like to go over the one which is the most realistic scenario, like take everything now into a little interpretation of mine. My most hopefully logical one, where Roberto is able to find the task force members because realistically he is finding them near Tenma. Some task force members can die here. Watari may even be around and could kill him too. Roberto could also escape after being able to get the jump. I'd like to also assume Watari is more well hidden, even Light or L, obviously you know this. We aren't going to do that similar to the behavior of the Death Note author. You have to make some stuff interesting, just like how Light could hypothetically sit in a room and kill while not making anyone suspicious. That's boring, and let's just say that Roberto shoots someone, jump them, blah blah blah. Johan is now able to run because he's realized that he's been a bit foiled. Some people know. Now being able to know and know to take the Death Note with him, Johan can now cook up some strategies for dealing with them. With the new goal properly wiping away Bonaparte and his existence, like I said before, wiping away everyone else, Johan may make more measures for Tenma and not go so close to him. With all of this in mind, this last scenario has only one goal in mind to achieve, which similar to last is Light getting his Death Note back and being able to win. Being able to go back to the last scenario with one little change with Task Force members dead or Watari. With some dead, even more could die. With Johan doing similar tactics like Detective Richard, where he is onto you, he will try to kill you. It's not weird to assume, so that means it could come down to Light's father dying and even more. With maybe one left, with Light and L being more on the stand-back approach. Still, like I said, Lunge was nearly dead because of what he had to deal with, and I'm sure Roberto would deal with some of these well because of the environment where this battle is placed in. I want to discuss how the environment affects a match. A lot of people assume just because Johan Liebert has the title of monster that he suddenly beats everyone in intelligence. Something that was brought up in the other scenario going over L versus Johan, people suddenly assume Johan is able to anticipate L even though he doesn't know that something like L exists nor is going after him. It literally makes no sense. Light Yagami is similar into intelligence with L Loliot, with having power over him with the Death Note, etc., solving cases when he was younger pre-Death Note, and also managed to go different plans when he was Kira, which actually required his own acting ability and strategy, as he had been put into situations where he couldn't use the Death Note to get out of different situations. With all of this knowledge in a finale with Johan and Tenma and fewer people, let's hope there's a couple being able to hold Johan and stop him. Light might be able to hold the Death Note and be able to act well enough as they take Johan. Light could be conversing with him, acting like he's interrogating while asking about the notebook, making sure to hold it. He can't kill Johan, he doesn't know his name and is too prideful to take the Shinigami eyes. Like I said, this is more realistic. This can be put into a display of Light's acting abilities. He's good enough to not make anyone suspect him. With over 64 cameras, he is able to act perfect while killing people, making L think he has some divine level mindset. This acting ability and socialization can be good enough so he seems like he is interrogating Johan while also making sure he doesn't reveal anything about Kira, besides obviously the notebook and fake rules. These fake rules were written prior to this scenario, and it's still this case because the third Kira would get this, and we had the notebook go to Johan instead, so he would still have those. As they get back and Johan into jail or some sort, Light had to be holding the notebook the entire time while doing this, somehow while still acting decently well under the guise of studying and questioning Johan. Light would try to convince Johan to pass over ownership, and this means with that, Johan will forget the existence of the Death Note, and also giving all of Light's memories back. If Light is able to achieve that, then the next step is also grabbing the other Death Note so he can use Misa. Can Light and Johan work together? Light Yagami has a sense of justice, but is also very twisted and would want to kill Johan for the vermin he is. This is why Misa is necessary. Misa would be with them, and we have yet to discuss Misa. But she was there but had no role and was being watched by L. There was no reason for her to go out. Misa would need to find the notebook, and with Johan under suspicion, Misa and Light would be able to move. With Light's ownership, he will have his previous memories. Now, if you think this is weird that he couldn't convince Johan, I mean, like, Johan has probably no personal grudge. He's still a bit twisted, you know. He's only killing for his sister, but it's possible Light could convince him. I don't think Johan has any other purpose. He's not like a justice dude. But if you disagree with me, that's fine. The scenario probably ends there. Unless there's another way to get him. Maybe Light tells Misa to do something, and then while Light has no memories, Misa could get Johan dead, blah blah blah. We'll see how this ends, first of all, with this scenario. With Light's ownership, he will have his previous memories. Light tells Rem to stay near Johan. This is possible because Mello did the same with the other Shinigami to remain on guard. While they go, after apprehending Johan, they can go back to Japan and actually lock him away. This is also convenient for Light because the Death Note would be buried somewhere. This was before he did this in his mind swap plan. And sure, they could put him in Germany, but we're just going to put him in Japan. This is why it gets a bit fanfiction-y still, but just with a bit of logic. All Light has to do is have Misa kill as Kira randomly and not consistently just to throw off the police, and since Johan still technically could be considered a suspect, there is no need for Rem to protect Misa, nor kill L and Watari yet. Meaning at some point Light will have Misa look at everyone's names and end up killing every single person, including L, and Johann Liebert. That is how I see Light Yagami winning and killing Johann, with him being behind bars, and not much to go from this story, and most likely having Anna's forgiveness, he would still be pretty fulfilled. Of course, compared to the actual timeline for Johann, he ran away from the hospital. He was held after learning of his real name. It would be interesting if Light talking to Johann beforehand just says his real name before killing him. I mean, that'd be pretty disrespectful. But I also have something I wonder, and this will be interesting for you people. Their mother had given them names, the twins, but she never said anything due to their circumstances, and then finally told Tenma in the end of Monster, meaning it could have been in her brain or something, but have not said it. So you may wonder how this factors into the Death Note. Well, a very convenient rule figures this out. A legit rule in the Death Note goes like this: the names you will see with the eye power of a god of death are the names needed to kill that person. You will be able to see the names even if that person isn't registered in the family registration. Basically, it is possible to kill Johann Liebert even without a registered name. Even with the Shinigami eyes, you can kill a nameless person. Light managed to wipe everyone away, and it's likely that they die with Light taking over L's role and controlling all of the police in the world, with no one to suspect him, which is how originally Nier caught on to Light. And it was also just casting doubt in the task force and having them give Nier information about him, like how he had been a suspect of the case beforehand, just like how Aizawa helped Nier. This means Light might not actually lose at all and win in the end. Now with this win overall, Death Note, and being able to kill Johann, which was my original goal of this question, which is if Light could catch/beat but also kill Johann. This was interesting since he is the quote-unquote nameless monster. We answered the catch and kill. Now to talk about beating. Beating/being smarter in this case in this first battle than another person has to be something set which is considered a win over another person. And for this, I'll take beats, then see which seems more difficult, while also factoring in stuff like Johann is able to beat Light or something because of the times, or like Lunge wouldn't be near L, who Light Yagami was able to verse as just a 16-year-old boy or 17-year-old high schooler. For anyone wondering about who is smarter between L and Light, there is a video right here on the topic. Johann, when confronting Light, would be able to severely manipulate Light. Now before you compare Light to L and say, no, that's not right, and start going insane, just listen. Johann, just like L, could provoke so much emotion out of Light that he would really need to be able to lead him into making many mistakes. Say Johann testing his own moral justice, which Johann would be able to read, which is based on Johann's amazing perception and could analyze the detective. I will use him as an example, as even though Detective Richard is not some crazy IQ hacks demon, it's a good display of how Johann conducts his manipulation and destruction of someone else. Johann first starts off being friendly, being able to come off normal enough, but also having little jabs at Richard, mentioning his own moral sense, mentioning the laws of children and how moral it was shooting someone that was from an institution named 501 Kinderheim, a place which that person grew up in and couldn't control his own environment, nor how he would turn out. With someone that has a daughter at home, this might not be so good. Johann is basically hinting at him. Johann switches locations. This is done so Johann can completely isolate his mental and succumb to Johann's words. If Richard was more in a more bright place with lots of noise, he'd at least be able to push back on Johann's words, but now he is fully isolated. Johann decides to reveal the truth as they are on the rooftop, all secluded. You can obviously assume his goal is so when Richard falls off he dies, obviously, but it's also so Johann isolates him. He makes him doubtful of himself and reminds him that he is a liar. If someone like that deserves to visit his daughter. That's why I also think Richard jumped off his own fruition. I discussed this again in that other video. And for those that don't know, people are arguing if Johann pushed Richard or he jumped off his own. But based on that, you can assume that Richard jumped off on his own through Johann's words. For this encounter, I can assume that Light Yagami, if he was also cornered like this, would also get emotional and make many mistakes like this. The TV example in Death Note was where Light got really emotional, which he called a mistake later on in the series. His manipulation goes as far as obviously controlling the evidence to some degree, being able to go against evidence and prove himself innocent. A lot of times, however, L never really got fooled through the task force. They sort of did. Naomi Misora manipulation feat, not the biggest, but Naomi is underrated in her smarts, so I'll give him that. Misa manipulation, not much. It could be similar to that appearance stuff that Johann has going for him. I think the real stuff comes from Light's acting ability. The camera plot and acting in front of the task force is pretty crazy. However, realistically, Light, unlike Johann, could just get more distracted by his own emotions. Johann was able to gather many followers and manipulate Richard through just one thing: the understanding of the darkness in human beings. His perception on humans is why he is wrong with Tenma. However, with some cases he is completely right, and he understands it well enough to grab a hold of it and use it. Exploiting Richard's guilt. He can exploit Light Yagami's own god complex and ego. He will read Light well enough. In a realistic scenario, Light would be acting perfect like how he did with L, but with little slip-ups and enough to push him enough to the edge. He could really send him off. In an outsmarting scenario and not as direct with Light's Death Note and all that stuff, Light most likely takes this part of the battle. Outsmarting I would put to Light Yagami, even though he would assume stuff like anticipation/perception, all of that stuff would already go to Johan, and prediction and deduction to Light. And to put it simply, since this video is already long, it's usually EQ to Johan and IQ to Light, with EQ being put in many different ways, and not just understanding of emotional intelligence, but also exploitation, like that dark stuff or whatever. For a general breakdown of EQ and IQ categories, you can go check out my little YouTube short, which I had help with someone named Sento. Go check him out too. Oh yeah, and in this battle, Johan can just shoot Light with a pistol.